Hi, my name is Andrew, and this video is an instructional video on how to create a resume using tables in Microsoft Word. It's for Business 214 Business Communications at Southwestern Michigan College. Before we get started with the actual instruction, I want to briefly go over the cover letter and resume assignments. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get started. Here's the instructions. The big thing with a resume: if you already have a resume, you can use it, but you need to create a table in Microsoft Office. Okay, so you don't have to completely reinvent the wheel, but part of the purpose of this assignment is to help you create a document that's balanced and that is grouped and aligned and spaced well. I want you to know how to use that table function. Okay, so if you already have a resume that has a table in it, then great, just turn it in. I mean, it's a good opportunity to work on it, but if you think it's as good as you can make it, then by all means, turn it in that way. If you have a resume already, but you don't have a table in it, then you're going to get docked points. So you do need to recreate it, not from scratch. You already have all the content there. I just want you to work on the formatting. Unless you have 15 to 20 years of experience, you shouldn't have more than 2 pages. And then when you write, I'm looking for active and vigorous language, okay? Focus on results, focus on things that you've done. One common fault that I see in students' resumes is they mistake attributes or characteristics of themselves for skills and accomplishments and abilities. You don't want to have a resume that's just full of non-verifiable adjectives that describe yourself, things like hardworking, punctual. Demonstrate that with the things that you've done. Don't just say that you're hardworking. So you want to have a lot of verbs in your resume. As far as your cover letter, this can be solicited or unsolicited. That's up to you. You can use personal letterhead available in Moodle or create your own. It doesn't matter. One thing I want you to do, though, is, if possible, to have some continuity between the look of your resume and your cover letter and your references page. Okay, so use the same header for all of them, use the same fonts, use the same headings, make them look good all together as one unit. You don't want to be turning in documents that don't look the same when you go to apply for a job. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention with your resume: it can be a functional or a chronological resume, or you can even create a hybrid of sorts. Just make sure that whatever you do, it makes sense for you, and that it's logical, and then you're good to go. Okay, for students without a lot of experience, you can do chronological or functional. Really either one's fine. If you do a chronological resume, then put your education first, followed by your work experience. If you have a lot of work experience, then by all means put that first and put your your education last. Okay, so let's move on then to this general tutorial. How do you go from a blank page like this to a resume like this with different columns and headings and everything? That's what I want to show you. Now, this is my resume, and it is by no means perfect. In my own opinion, something I'd like to fix about it is create some more white space, maybe remove, it's just kind of wordy, right? So I want to get a little bit more brief with it. Create some more space between my bullet points and the descriptions and things like that, okay? But you can see how this is organized. First of all, you have your header up here. And this header is consistent between my resume and my cover letter. You see here it looks the same. And then you have your headings. Okay, so you have your summary, you have your work experience, and then you have subheadings. Okay, and I actually have 2 different layers of subheadings. So here's a smaller one where you list, maybe the employer's name or the school where you got your degree. And then below that, you have your job title as a subtitle. Okay, so you have 3 different levels of headings in this document. I think that that's a good way to do it. It keeps your information organized. Ideally, using a table enables you to maintain alignment. As you can see here, everything is lined up real nicely. Maintain your spacing, maintain your grouping, and maintain your styles, all without having to resort to the dreaded tab, 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 space, space method. You don't want to do that, okay? Now, as you can see, you can accomplish quite a bit with just the layout of your resume. You don't necessarily have to resort to gimmicks or to color or anything like that. I just included one vertical column on the left-hand side where I put some quotations from different reviews and evaluations that I've had. I probably need to update those. They're getting a little dated. So, you know, your resume is a living document. It's something that you work on regularly as you go through your career. You're going to update it as you go. Okay, so this is what we're going to try to create. Let's get started. First of all, open up a document in Microsoft Word. Before you do anything, go to your page layout. Make sure that your that your margins are good. I would recommend 1-inch margins. I used a 1/2 inch on mine partially. I had to because I had that vertical column which had a lot of white space in it, so I needed to be able to fit everything. So you can use a 1/2 inch, but really I would recommend a 1-inch, especially if you're a student without a lot of experience. Once you have your margins set, go to the Home tab here in your ribbon. Before you do anything else, I would recommend you go in and create some styles. Okay, now what's nice about the styles is it enables you to get these nice looking headings and subheadings and your main body text. It enables you to be consistent in how you do it, okay, and how it looks. So it's going to look the same no matter which section you're in. And it's also a bit of a time saver in the long run, okay? So I've already made one here for this document. But as you can see, you can make make your normal text. You can make headings. You can make titles. You can scroll through them using these arrows here on the right, or hit this arrow down on the bottom, and that'll bring all of them up for you to look at. You can create a new style here, or if you right-click on one, you can modify it, rename it. You can even remove it. In this case, let's take a look at heading. Yeah, I think I want to make a change to the heading. I want to make it bold, okay? So when you do that, first of all, here's where you can rename it. When you create a style, you can base it on another style, and what's nice about that is that it kind of loads that other style in here, and you can make whatever changes you want and then save it under a different name. So the nice thing about that is it does a lot of the work for you. You can change the font. Now, I would recommend you stick with either Times New Roman or Arial or maybe Calibri or Cambria or Garamond. Okay, one of those. These very simple or even timeless fonts. A serif font like a Times New Roman kind of says, hey, I'm classy, I'm old-fashioned. You can go with maybe Calibri or Garamond or something if you're looking for something that is a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more modern, without quite going all the way to Arial. You want to be anywhere from size 10 to 12 font. You can, of course, bold, underline, or italicize. You can change the color. If you want, for your subheadings, you can go with something on the grayscale, but again, I wouldn't recommend using color for most resumes. You can change alignment, spacing, and this is important. One thing that you want to do when you create this is you want to make sure that you're at 0 spacing after. Okay, so you do that by using these arrows. You can also go into format. If I remember right, it might be under maybe under paragraph, I forget, but you can get in and mess around with that if you want. Anyway, the reason you don't want any spacing is because it's going to mess up your table if you do. Okay, so I'm going to leave the 12-point spacing there because I like it, and you'll see why. But you definitely want to make sure that this isn't set to anything crazy. Okay, so that's done. You're going to want to create your normal text, at least one heading, a title, and then maybe a couple of subtitles. All right. Now we're ready to begin with the table. So you're going to go to Insert, go to Table. You can, of course, just use this grid here to create one, but I like to go to Insert Table and do a 2-column table with like 50 rows. And the reason I do that is because it gives you a lot to play around with. Go ahead and leave your fixed column width at auto so it does it for you. Now we're cooking with gas. Okay, so what I usually like to do when I create a resume is don't mess around right away with your styles. Instead, just get the information put into the grid and then go in and make it look pretty after, okay? So the first thing you want to do is create your header. Now you can do that way up here in the actual header, but actually what I like to do is use the table. Now, once you get the hang of manipulating this table, it goes pretty easily, and actually you can do a lot with it. If you know how to do this, you can do anything in Microsoft Word that most people can accomplish with the Adobe Creative Suite, maybe like Adobe Illustrator. Actually, excuse me, InDesign, sorry. So get to know this. You can do quite a bit with it. Now, up here on your ribbon, you have your table tools. Under design, you can change shading and you can mess around with all this kind of stuff. The only tool you're really going to use a lot of probably is going to be your borders. We'll get to that later. Right now, you want to go ahead and leave those in. Under layout, though, you can delete cells, delete rows and columns. You can insert them. You can split and merge cells. If you want to split your table, you can. That's usually better for like a page break. You can also change the height and the width of your cells. So one thing I like to do is make sure that each cell, for example, let me show you. I like to make sure that each cell is uniform according to its style. Okay, so here I have 0.3 inches for my headers, and then even smaller for my subheaders. Okay, so that this way it's always uniform. It always looks the same throughout the whole document. That's what that does for you. Okay, so the way I like to manipulate the table is simply to highlight the cells I want and right click, and from here I can insert, delete, or merge. If I want to split a cell, I can. You just have to make sure you only have one selected, and you go here to split cells and make them as many as you want, just like that. Pretty cool, right? So what we're going to do here to create your header is we're going to merge these, type in your name, and then below that we'll put in contact information, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, some road, some place, Wisconsin. Okay, you get the picture, right? On the next side, you're going to do your email and then your phone number. Now, how you format this is entirely up to you. Okay, I like to use the periods. I think it looks cool or something. Actually, really, I think it looks a little more clean, but it's up to you how you do it. Okay, now this cell I want to align right. Actually, I forgot to do this earlier. What I do is I go through all of these before I begin, and I make sure when I go here to text alignment that I am centered and left aligned. Okay, that way everything's the same to start off with. And in this case, I actually want this guy to go on the right. Right align. Boom. Okay. I like to include one space, one full cell of space between each section of my resume. So next, let's talk about education. Since my audience here is students, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you want to put education first in your resume. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before you do that, you might want to include a summary of some kind. You might call it summary. You might call it, sorry, I'll make that bigger for you. You might call that results and related, gosh, I wish I could type, experience. You could call it education and related experience. For right now, I'm going to call this a summary. And this is where you're going to include, if it's appropriate for you, see, I'm going to merge the cell. This is where you include maybe 3 or 4 bullet points that really hit the highlights of your resume. The reason you do this is because you want to put that important information first, because most people only get about 10 to 20 seconds on a resume before they either put it in the keep or the pitch pile. So put the most important stuff up here, okay? So Bachelor of Science, Accountancy from Ferris State University. Oh, yeah. You might include a couple other ones like State Thumb Wrestling Champion, maybe? Okay, you get the picture. This really, you're going to put some serious stuff here, right? This might be a good place for you to put something that's maybe a little bit more descriptive of you that you wouldn't put elsewhere, like, oh, I don't know. Let's say, now I'm drawing a blank, of course, because I'm on a recording. So, excellent public, actually, how about this? Experienced public speaker, top trainer, capable of delivering consistent results and working with diverse audiences. Oh man, that's a good bullet point. You should steal that one if it applies to you. All right, so that's the idea with the summary. Now next, we're going to go ahead and do your education. Now this is where we're going to get into different levels of headings, okay? So if you have a bachelor's degree, you're going to always put your most recent, which is typically your highest degree, first. For me, that's an MBA. Now you could spell this out and say Master's Business Administration, or you could put just MBA. You do whatever you want. This was August 2017. Okay, now we're going to do a Bachelor of Science. That was May 2013. Now we're on to a different school. How do you pronounce Dowagiac? Dowagiac, Michigan. Sorry, I forgot a comma. May 2012. All right, so eventually, we're going to get to the point here. Sorry, I forgot my space. We're going to get to a point where we'll change these headings, but for right now, we'll just leave this as it is. Now we'll go to work experience. And again, you're going to get into different levels of information here, right? So for you as a student, I don't know what kind of job experience you have. Let's say you work at McDonald's. I don't know what you would actually write for that, but McDonald's restaurants, Dowagiac, Michigan. Okay, so you're going to put your employer here, and then you're going to put job titles underneath that. So head, burger, flipper. Actually, let's say quality control maestro. Okay, that was from whatever dates, right? So August 2016 to present. You always want to start with your most current work experience, okay? This is for the chronological approach. Now underneath here, before you launch into all the cool stuff that you did, maybe include a description. Responsible. How about this? Created a new position within the McDonald's corporation, whatever, restaurant, focused, on burger and fry quality control. Boom. Now, this is where you're going to start listing those accomplishments, okay? So, merge, bullet points. All right, these accomplishments should ideally, this is where you're going to put things that you accomplished, right? Perfect attendance for all of 2014. Named Burger Flipper of the Year, 2012, 2014, 2015. Okay, you get the idea. This is where ideally you're actually putting something that's quantifiable. Okay, so I improved the quality, maybe the scrap rate for new burgers from 15% to 18%. I don't know, but it needs to be quantifiable, ideally. That's not always easy to do when you're first getting started, but that's what you want to move towards, okay? Before you were a quality control maestro, you were just a burger dude or dudette, right? Burger flipper. August 2013 to August 2016. So you see how there's overlap here, right? August 2016, August 2016. If you had a gap, that's fine, just leave it. Okay, and then you're gonna go, right, so it's the same process here. Merge. Doggone it. There we go. And then your accomplishments. Oops, gotta have those bullet points. I'm sorry, this must be getting very infuriating for you. All right. After you do your education, after you do your work experience, this is where you're going to include things like, volunteer experience, and I don't know, awards and accomplishments. So, you might include your headings here, like with organization and then position. It kind of depends on what you did. Olympic gold medalist curling 20. I don't know when the last Winter Olympics were. So anyway, that's how that works. Okay. Now that you have your basic bones of your resume, now's the time when you can start playing around with these styles, okay? So let's go ahead, we'll put title here. These little guys, let's make that subtitle. Yeah, we can do that. And this one, we definitely want to write a line here. This is why you don't want to mess around with this stuff too much before you get going. Okay, and then from there, you just go to town. All right, so use your headings. Maybe we'll stick with title. For your name, you can increase that in size. Oh, oops. Maybe not. Education, we'll make that a title. Work experience is a title. And volunteer experience, that's a title. And then awards and accomplishments is going to be a title, right? So these are all your major sections. And then underneath each of these, okay, you don't have to make any changes here. We want that to be normal. Under education, that's going to be a heading. And then each degree, you could leave that as maybe normal text, or you can make it a subtitle. The key here is to be consistent. Build it out how you want, as long as it's the same every time. Sorry, this ought to be a heading. This guy, he's a subtitle. All right. So this way I don't have to use bullet points. I don't have to use tabs and spaces and stuff. I just make this look how it should look, Subtitle, let's see here. So for your school name or for your employer's names, you want to do headings. For the actual positions, maybe do subtitles. And then you can leave the text describing these things as just your normal text, your normal font. This way I know I'm looking at, oops, sorry, that should be subtitle, I know I'm looking at, you know, a job title when I see it's in italics here. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, a few more things we want to do to make this look beautiful. All right, first of all, we want to mess around with some of the spacing. I'm actually going to go through and delete some of these extra rows because the way that the spacing is already built in here. We need to align these cells right. All right, so we're getting there. This is starting to look better, okay? Really the last thing that you need to do, aside from getting your spacing right, maybe playing around with the sizing of some of these headings and, you know, getting it so that it looks balanced and looks good, is for the whole table, you want to get rid of these borders. Now if you go to layout, you get rid of the view grid lines here, and now you see what it's going to look like for you when you have your finished product, okay? So still, you know, I don't think the grouping is quite right. We can play around with that. I don't have time to show it to you. One thing you can do is you can incorporate a border here and there. Now I have that line. Ooh, yeah, that looks much better. Okay, we can change our titles so they're a little bit bigger. Okay, yeah, this is looking much better. And let's go to layout, view grid lines. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of space between these different job titles, right? Now look, we're starting to get into page 2. That's okay. What I would do, you know, in order to get this down is just start playing around with the sizing of some of this text, you know, and some of this white space. But overall, what we have here now is a document that looks pretty good. It's the advantage of doing a table is that you maintain consistent grouping and alignment and styles. So you create a document that is pleasing to the eye and that is easy to read and understand. Okay, so you know, one thing you might do is go through with these different employers, different schools, and put them in bold. I think that looks a little better. What do you think, huh? Definitely. I like that a lot better. One thing you can do is start adding cells, okay? So I'm going to split this cell into 2 columns and add my GPA, 3.96, okay? Whatever the heck it was for that, okay? You get the picture. You can, oh, and here you probably don't want to right align that. You probably can left align that. Oh yeah, that looks good. Split, yes. You don't need to include GPAs, but it's not a bad thing to do if you're a student without a whole lot of career experience, or if it's really high, you know, of course it's a good thing to do. And here, I want to fix this so I can fit technical and professional communication into one line. There we go. Oh, so much better. Okay? So there, we just gained a whole line just by doing that. So you can play around with these and make them different sizes in order to make this work better for you. I think what I'm going to do here is actually go to a normal font and then just italicize it and maybe even make it a little bit smaller because it is just the header. Oh yeah, and this sucker, he needs to be right aligned. Okay, so anyway, I think I showed you the basics. I think I showed you enough to create your own resume. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to help you. Of course, right now I'm going through and taking a look and seeing if these are all the same height. So you can really get into the weeds Look, these two are different heights. They actually don't, they look the same. You can go through and do that if you want. So anyway, just reach out if you have any questions. Feel free to, I'm going to post this on YouTube, so you can feel free to make a comment, or you know, if you have my email, which you do, just email me.